Okay, guys. Well, thank you everyone for being here today. I'm super excited to have this event tonight. Really excited to have Colin Sankey joining us. Colin, did I say that right? Did I say your name right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Just so you guys know, Colin actually used to attend these studio meetups. We were just talking about that back in like 2023, maybe. He would attend these occasionally, and I think back then Colin was, what many people consider like an up and coming artist. I mean, a lot of us still are, and I remember Colin being at our events and getting to know him a little bit. And since then, Colin has really skyrocketed in his personal career of musicianship. Just some quick statistical points. We're talking over 213,000 followers across different social media channels, 50, millions upon millions of views in his performances. Definitely carving a niche for himself as an artist, which is something that a lot of musicians are trying to figure out. And I think Colin has really had a great journey in discovering that and honing that for himself. So I'm super excited to have him here. Um, Colin, do you want to would you be cool to give a quick like introduction, maybe share a little more about yourself, kind of how you got started and kind of what you've been doing and what your ballpark of expertise is?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm basically a solo bassist, but I play not just solo. I guess I could say I'm a bassist, arranger, and composer. I started basically an Instagram channel trying to feature my solo bass playing a few years ago, just at the recommendation of a few friends who were in a band I was in. And yeah, I was just trying to post videos every week or every couple weeks, trying to build my following. And it took about 3 years to get to 1,000 followers, 8 months to go from 1,000 to 4,000, and then like 2 months to go from 4,000 to over 90,000. So it just kind of like the trajectory was just like exponential, just like right up as soon as I started, you know, uh, a couple of my videos started taking off. I just kind of exploded right from there, and so I've been doing a lot of solo bass playing, but also I play with different bands. I play with a Persian rock star. I've gone to London to play gigs. I've gone to Toronto. I do some tours around town as well. But I also have my own band as well that backs me up, playing the same arrangements that I would play solo, but arranged obviously for a full band. So I do a bit of everything. I do some side band work as I also do session work, but also like arranging and composing and a lot of social media stuff as well. So
Yeah, that's great. I always think about that video where you play the Super Mario theme with all the different bass tapping techniques. If you guys haven't seen that, it's insane. Like Colin is like just the way he plays bass is crazy, and it actually like it totally makes sense to me how that kind of stuff goes viral. It's the kind of video where you're like, holy crap, like this is insane. Like who actually does this kind of stuff? And here you are doing it. I'll put a link in the chat if anyone, and then also on Instagram if you're watching. I'll put it in the post afterwards if you want to check it out. But um, I just have a couple questions that kind of populated from some of the folks that signed up on the meetup page that maybe we can dive through, and then we can also open it up to Q&A if people have questions in the Instagram chat, or Joel, Raheel, you guys are welcome to chime in with questions as well. The first question that came across was what was the most pivotal thing that you did that you felt propelled your career to the next level? If you had to pick one thing that really changed the game for you, what would you say that was? If you know of one.
absolutely. So it's hard to say one particular thing, but it's more like it depends on which aspect of my career, I guess we're talking about. If we're talking about like when I started gigging a lot, which was basically the summer of 2022. It was not necessarily anything in particular. It was just the fact that I had been spending so much time trying to get gigs during COVID. that as soon as the lockdowns ended, I started, the floodgates open and I started gigging like 4 or 5 times a week. So it was just like more of a, the pressure just building up, and obviously applying to so many different places. And as soon as lockdowns ended, just gigging all the time. But as far as more my social media following, and kind of more my trajectory as an artist, it was more when in 2023, um, I I posted my version of Get Lucky, which I had been working a lot at for about 6 years, and then I finally recorded it in April of 2023, and we were doing this kind of creative uh, music video near the Robson SkyTrain station in Vancouver, at like 1 or 2 in the morning, and it was freezing cold, and I was, having to, blast the AC or the heat in my car, and to just warm my hands up enough to just be even able to play. And then when I posted that in July of that year, I remember one day just opening up my phone because it was just constantly blowing up with notifications, and within about a 24-hour time span, it had already accumulated like 114,000 views, and I was like, wow, that was, I mean, that really, I had no expectation that that was going to happen, right? So over the next few weeks, it kind of blew up to about 4.9 million or 4.7 million or something between TikTok and Instagram. And I had increased my following from like, I had gained at least 60 or 70,000 new followers online, just from that one video. And then I did
Wow.
Mario a few weeks after that, and that also blew up. But it was just literally, I went from like uh, basically a nobody online to somebody who a bunch of people are now paying attention to, and want to learn bass from, or whatever, people like asking me for lessons, or yeah, exactly.
Eric's playing it in the background.
Yeah. And then also, what else came out of that? I did some brand deals and the like, um, and also just, my monthly listeners on Spotify skyrocketed from like 40 to over 800. So in like a couple days. So it was just yeah, it kind of put a lot more eyes on my music as an artist. So that was kind of what propelled me to, or I guess inspired me to continue, like, release more music, kind of going down the trajectory of like a bass oriented, artist. Yeah.
Do you feel like do you feel like some of that success could be accredited to the fact that because the first one was the Daft Punk remix you said, right? And then you did the you said you did the Mario's theme. I mean, those are like very famous covers or songs that are out there. Do you
Yeah.
feel like there was a lot of growth because of the fact that you sort of worked with something that was already widely known, like or almost in a remix sense? Do you feel like
Yeah.
that made a difference?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's always the more iconic songs that get the most views, right? I mean, there's kind of it seems to be a bit of a winning formula for when you're an instrumentalist trying to post music online. It's got to be like very virtuosic and flashy and kind of attention grabbing,
Yeah.
but it's also got to be kind of catchy and got to be a really cool song, right? So you're just bets are generally better with something that people already know and can recognize just like right off the bat, because you have about zero point 0.5 seconds to just grab people's attention. Otherwise, they're gonna swipe and look at the next video, right? So
Right.
Get Lucky was really good, and same with Mario, because those are two super iconic songs. And especially for my a fan base, I feel like it's also, who is your target audience. And when I look at my analytics, there's a lot of like, there's obviously people from all sorts of demographics, but the biggest analytic was like, I think, men ages like 25 to 40 or something like that. And I was like, who grew up in the time that Get Lucky was a hit, and who grew up playing Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah, the
That's kind of
millennials.
a,
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So that's
yeah,
a big piece to it right there as well, knowing your niche.
yeah. How many how many videos would you say you created before you had that success? Like, everyone talks about frequency and how many videos you should post and expect X number of growth. I mean, you had
Yeah.
two videos that are the basically the cornerstones of what skyrocketed you in your opinion. Maybe there's more than two, but those two were the biggest. How many videos flopped? Like, how many videos have you made that just didn't get go anywhere?
At least, probably over 100, right? At least.
Yeah.
Because I remember like going through like watching who is that guy, that big YouTuber guy? Think Media, I think was his name.
Mm.
Or that's a channel name. Can't remember the guy's name, but he talks about like you need to get your first 35 videos out there. That's your first step. And I was like, I'm definitely way over that. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so, and then since then, I've had many videos that flopped, even since the viral videos. So,
Mm.
the average views are obviously way up, but like, there's for me, I consider like 5,000 views to be like a flop now. It's like, whereas that back then that would have been awesome to have,
Yeah.
but yeah, at least for over 100 because I've done trying to do at least weekly videos since 2019. So
Yeah, staying busy. And guys, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat if you're watching on Instagram or here in Zoom. I'm going to get through a couple more of these questions that we have in our submissions for the people that RSVP'd, and then we'll jump in. Raheel, I see you have a question there too. We'll get to that soon. Um, I want to ask another question that was sent in before the event. How do you balance posting content? And this is again just in the content conversation. I feel like there's a lot of interest there. How do you balance posting content that is authentic to you and what the audience likes? So now you kind of have a sense of what the audience enjoys, but maybe that's not what you personally align with. Maybe there's some disconnect. How do you balance that or find that middle ground? Or do you?
absolutely. So there are times when a piece of content feels aligned with what I want to play musically. Like especially those first two that went viral, Get Lucky and Mario, were just arrangements that I had constructed out of a passion for arranging for the bass. So those didn't feel like I was really doing anything that um, just for the views or just for the clicks. But I mean, there was this other video I posted a couple weeks ago that was like literally just a stupid gimmick of like trying to fit as many techniques as possible in the shortest time frame. Just because I just read Gary Vee's book about social media, and it's a great book. You should read it, by the way, if you're interested. It's called Day Trading Attention, but it's super useful for the social media side, and it got me thinking, like about strategic organic content, right? And as soon as I kind of read that, this idea popped into my head of just like cramming as many techniques as possible
Yeah.
into as short a time frame as possible because it's like a strategic organic content. You're trying to capture people's attention and then hold it for as long as possible. And when they see, oh, he's doing 22 techniques in like 10 seconds, it's like there's a reason right from the beginning of the video to obviously watch the whole video, and that's kind of what keeps people's attention. But that video was kind of like I felt like was kind of stupid musically. I was just like I'm just gonna try to cram as much as possible, and it got like I don't know, like 1.3 million views on TikTok and same on Instagram. So it was just like this feels like the dumbest thing I could post, but it kind of just blew up. I was just doing it for the views. So sometimes you do have to kind of do cater to the lowest common denominator, or like cater to whatever you think your niche wants, which is obviously when you're thinking like, oh, I have to play some stupid gimmick. um, it can be, it might feel like a little bit soul crushing rather than to play something that's more authentic to you. But you just have to recognize that it is kind of something you have to do, right, to build your audience. But I would encourage you to kind of balance that. Try to find the balance between like playing something that's more authentic, more driven by your artistry, but also can capture people's attention. So you just kind of have to know your niche, know what they want from you, and try to maybe find ways to caption the video or to engage people with something that's still you know still more true to you, right? So
Yeah.
you,
Well, and there's definitely something to be said. I mean, you obviously are a talented bass player. Like you obviously have been doing this for a long time, and it's very evident, even in a video, like you said, where you just crammed things in, there's still artistry there. You can still tell that you know your craft, and it sounds like part of that is tapping into what you know, so that when people see it, they're like, oh my gosh, this is like crazy. Like I didn't know somebody could be this good at bass, or could be this technical. But to you, it's like that's what you do every day. It's very natural to you. So do you feel like there's a lot of that too, like as an artist, kind of tapping into what you enjoy and what you are maybe a little bit more like, I don't know how many bass players you know of your friends that are able to perform the same way. Do you kind of stand out in that light, and are you aware of that sort of quality to you?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I definitely I know that I'm recognized as being kind of like a you know being unique for my like approach to the bass, very like more oriented around like playing all the parts at the same time. It's not something that typically bass players I know have taken the approach of doing. I mean, at least not to the extent that I have, but yeah, for sure. And that is very authentic to what I like to do. So, it's definitely good to find like whatever is like, the most unique aspect of what you're doing as an artist, what sets you apart from other artists, and try to push that on the socials. Because that will, it's like catering to your strengths. One of my strengths is crafting these kind of lush solo pieces, and because that's kind of what I'm best at, that's also I'm showcasing my biggest skill. So whatever makes you think of whatever makes you stand out from other people, and kind of push that, because that is kind of your best, your best bet.
Yeah, I watched one of your videos where you are like performing a bass, maybe a solo or a song, like in a park, and it's like you as a solo player. It's all cinematic. The camera's moving around you. I think a lot of, at least for me, I haven't historically thought of the bass as being like a solo instrument, being like something that people can like like it's not like a guitar solo, but you can do that, and you obviously do it very well. And it kind of reminded me of back in the day when Lindsey Sterling first kind of like blew up on the
Yeah,
scene. She was like playing violin to electronic music, and people were like, "That's weird, but it actually sounds really cool," or whatever. And that was
totally.
kind of her niche. So, I mean, it sounds like you've been able to kind of find your specialty within that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. There's always a niche for whatever you do, right? There's always, no matter what kind of music you play, no matter how esoteric it might be, there's always kind of like a group of people that will want to listen to it. So you just kind of have to figure out how to stand out within that niche. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so I just want to transition a little bit now. There were some questions that we had kind of more into the business side of things. So obviously you've had some success now with the social media, with the content. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about maybe how that translates into like your booking world, your performance world? Are you getting gigs now because of this? Are you being able to sort of leverage this growth into getting like maybe like more monetary results in the form of like are you getting paid on TikTok? Are you getting paid on Spotify? Are you getting paid more for live shows? Kind of how has that transition been?
Absolutely. So a big thing is one of the issues with a lot of these social media platforms is they don't pay people per views and I do think they should, because they're obviously getting advertising money out of it. And some of them do, but they don't. But I guess my what I do, like I'm in Canada, so like for example, the TikTok Creator Fund isn't available in Canada still for some reason. So
Mhm.
there's definitely issues with that. One of my focuses has been to try to monetize YouTube, because I know YouTube pays a little better. So I'm still working on that. But As far as monetizing different things, absolutely. I've gotten a lot of offers for brand deals, for instance. I've done a few of those. I've definitely gotten people asking me for lessons, so there's definitely a private music lesson business that I've been starting as a result of that. And also people have searched me out for gigs for sure. Like people um, um, have seen like you know some of my videos and just asked me to you know do different like corporate gigs and stuff like that. I mean, the videos that I film are also you know used as part of my press kit. So
Mhm.
definitely the videos that I've used have definitely helped me get a lot of gigs. But also the Spotify numbers have been affected a lot by that. So that's a big thing as well. Like I say, I was 40. I think Spotify listeners, monthly Spotify listeners. Before all this, I'm currently at like over 1,000, but with still a lot more promotion to do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but so there's been like some basically trade off, like you get these followers and these subscribers who then, become your Spotify listeners, become your students, that sort of thing. So there's like opportunity for you to expand into these other sort of business worlds with the teaching, with maybe the brand deals, that sort of thing, right?
absolutely, yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. There's another question here I want to ask, just kind of going into some more like musicality, and some of the sort of like the business of working with others. What do you, or maybe to what extent do you think it's important to work with other, or to collaborate with other musicians? I mean, obviously your videos have been you playing solo, but have you found that collaborating with other artists has been useful to you? Do you have that? Are you thinking about doing it more? What does that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, that I don't have a ton of those type of videos on my social media channel, obviously, but in my regular, obviously day to day life, I do a lot of that. Like I'm a sideman, obviously, for a bunch of different musicians. So that's a very important aspect to my career, as well as hiring musicians to play on my own tracks. So it's very important to make connections with good musicians all over. Like you can find them at jam sessions or like open mic nights or gigs. If and it's super important to just get out there and chat with different people. Like when you see somebody do an amazing performance that kind of drops your jaw on the floor, don't be afraid to go up and talk to them about it afterwards, right? And maybe get their Instagram or something so you can stay in touch. I've done a lot of that, and some of those people that I've met at different events and stuff have then called me up for a gig later. So that's definitely super important. Um, for
Yeah.
sure. Collaborations are something I want to get more into. I've done a couple on my page, like where you kind of two people kind of share in the spotlight for the particular post that you're doing.
Mhm.
That's something that I think is cool. It's just hard to figure out. It's like you have twice as many. Like it's harder logistically, I guess, to pull off than just doing it by yourself. But it's super fun to get more kind of heads in the room and kind of bounce ideas off them and stuff for sure. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. Well, before we jump into questions from the chat and from some Instagram questions I'm seeing, I just have one more question, kind of from the from the panel, if you will. What's next? So now that you've had the success, now that you've had these videos, you have these followers, you're getting these gigs. What are you thinking? Like, what's in your mind for like the next steps? Are you focusing on the content, getting more of that out there? Are you now focusing more on the performance? Kind of like what's your thoughts with where to take your career next, that now that you've had some viral success?
absolutely. Well, my biggest focus was to release an album, which I did just about a week ago, week and a half. It
Oh,
is
awesome.
Yeah, on Spotify. It's
Congrats.
on all platforms right now. It has my version of the Mario theme on it as well. So
Ah.
that's a big element. It's called Call and Response. So
I like that.
yeah, yep. So it's yeah, and it's all on all streaming platforms, and that is my kind of my main focus right now is just kind of promoting that as hard as I can. Maybe trying to get it on a few bass magazines, different blogs. But my main focus is obviously on the social media side of promoting, just like getting viral reels out. I filmed 6 music videos, I think, for this particular album, which is a lot more than I think most because there's almost a video for every different song. But that's kind of my main wheel for like promoting it is pumping out video after video, and also just doing just videos in my room. Trying to get a couple more viral videos and kind of funnel some listeners into that, and hopefully go on tour and do some pretty sick festivals. I'd love to just like do a tour where I'm just like, across the country, just doing like 400-seat theaters, you know, at
Yeah.
some point in the future. That's kind of the dream. So I'm just kind of taking the steps I want to take to get there. Just pushing the album obviously really hard, getting those music videos out there, and getting some some viral videos up.
Yeah. It's
Absolutely.
interesting. I don't know much about like the headliner world of like this kind of music, but
Yeah.
um I one of my good buddies actually, he's one of the stage managers, and there's multiple for Hans Zimmer, and he does like the Hans Zimmer like global tours. And
Oh,
when I think about this music, I feel like it would be a good fit for a tour like that, which is very orchestral, very like technically, creative and elaborate, and but that's good. I mean, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of like what people like to know is like, now that you've had some success, what is the next thing you're going to do? So thank you for giving that insight. Actually, I'm going to dive into some questions from the chat, and Raheel, I'm going to pull yours first here at the end, just because it kind of ties in. So, Colin, you mentioned you had the Mario song in the album, and Raheel had a good question about copyrights. When it comes to like licensing requirements and things like that. Did you have any issues with that particular one? I mean, to what extent was that a concern, or kind of how did that play out?
yeah, it's not. It's definitely not a big concern. Just because I use DistroKid mainly for music distribution, right? And so with DistroKid, every time I upload a new cover song, I just have to like, check off the box that says, "Is this a cover song?" And
Mm,
then DistroKid kind of handles all the licensing for you in that. So that's the beauty of using like a distributor. I think DistroKid's pretty particularly quite good about allowing you to do covers. So
How
I
does
don't
that
think.
work, by the way? Do they take a percentage of it, or like do they get the rights to it, or do you know?
Yeah, they basically clear all the licensing rights stuff that you need to do with the copyright owner. So by the way, if you want to release a cover of any kind, you have to consider that it's going to take a few days longer for them to process that particular song than like an original. So you have to factor that in when like obviously in the promotional side of things. Like if you need a song on release radar a week in advance of the recording or of the release, you gotta factor in if you're gonna put in a cover, then you probably should submit it a week, sooner than you would have otherwise. You
Yeah.
know, because it will often take up to a week for them to process and clear all the rights. But I just use DistroKid for that. There's just a little a section for cover songs. It's like it asks you a bunch of questions, and is there explicit lyrics? For me, there's no lyrics at all. So
Yeah. That's
and
crazy. I actually, honestly, I didn't even know you could do covers
yeah,
and like
super
release
cool.
them with like monetization purposes. That I thought you had to actually like contact the license owner like indirectly and be like, "Hey, I need to have your permission." But it's
Yeah.
nice that something like DistroKid, and I used to use DistroKid, but I haven't for a while now. But it's good to know that they offer that. I mean, that's huge, because I
Yes.
agree with your sentiment earlier that like having music that plays off of the classics, if you will, or songs that are already recognized by the masses gives you a chance to, it's almost like it's like a glue to like familiarize your music to them, because instead of them coming across somebody that they're like, they have no idea who you are, they have no idea what you're playing because it's an original. If there's something they can latch onto as like a, oh, I know this, okay, let me hear what, okay, oh, he's doing bass, oh, it's Mario, but it's like way different, you know, like
Yeah.
kind of gives that tie-in, sounds like, right? So
Absolutely, that's a huge, super useful thing. You know, it's like you might make less money from like per stream anyway, or per sale per unit from that piece, because you know you have to obviously split some of the what you may call it, the revenue or the royalties with the copyright owner. But on the flip side, it also will likely bring a lot more new fans into your music who will then listen to your originals, right? So that's a kind of classic thing that a lot of bands have done, just like try to draw people in with the covers, and then you know kind of introduce some originals, and then they kind of just go on, and do their thing, right? So
yeah.
that's a huge aspect of it as well, for sure.
There's a,
And
I
also,
think I think it was the Austin Kleon book, the one that was like Steal Like an Artist or whatever, that one that
yeah,
got pretty famous a while ago. He was
yeah.
talking about that too, and he's saying that like even if you almost perfectly copy an existing song, there's no way for you not to inject yourself into it, and naturally it's going to become something different to where
Mm,
it's not an exact replica. It's going to be in your style, whether it's vocally, whether it's with an instrument, whether it's a performance aspect. So it's like there's it's almost impossible to make a perfect copy. You can't ever be the exact same thing. You naturally will kind of make it your own, and people can be attracted to you because of that, because they
mm.
are, you know, they know the classic and now they hear this new version that maybe scratches the itch in their heads or in their brains in a different way, you know.
Exactly.
So,
No matter what, you're gonna be throwing your own flair on it, right? Because it's like part of your whatever, part of your personality or your musical stylings, for sure.
right. I have one more question, and then we can jump into some other questions if Eric, Raheel, Joel, if you guys have anything you want to ask. One question that came from Instagram chat was, well, it's kind of vague. What's the best way to grow your network? I think they're asking specifically about like as an artist, in terms of people knowing you and knowing your work, knowing your music, knowing who you are as a performer. Would you say is the social media the best way to grow that? And if so, um, any other tips or strategies aside from what we've already talked about that could be useful to others?
Yeah, for sure. So growing your network is yeah, it's a tricky thing. It's music is a weird, kind of industry in that it often feels kind of insulated, in a way. It feels like kind of separate, like you kind of just have to like kind of, you know, hustle and kind of get in touch with all the right people, and they're kind of not secretive, but they're kind of, you know,
Like
you know,
gatekeepers, kind of?
yeah, gatekeepers and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's a weird thing. I don't know how to describe it. It just feels like you kind of have to know the right people, and they're hard to find a lot of the time. So, but a big thing is just like I said, like going to jam sessions, or going to open mic nights. You can meet people. I mean, you want to go to open mic nights preferably with a higher caliber, and same with like jam sessions. You can also just meet a lot of people at different gigs, different industry events. Breakout West is a big one in Western Canada, where I'm from. They do that one every year at a different, a Western Canadian city. So it's just like a meetup of different industry, you know, big music industry people and artists and stuff. So there's also Canadian Music Week. I'm sure in America there's probably a ton of different events like that. So going to those big industry events would be a big thing for sure. And social media is a really great way. For networking as well, because you're getting your music in front of potentially millions of eyes that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get in front of, and sometimes in just at the drop of a hat, right? In just one instant, you could be getting in front of millions of people. So that's definitely a big thing. Staying in touch with the connections you make on there. I've done a lot of like collabs like online for like big YouTubers with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Sometimes they do like big collabs, and all the musicians on there kind of just like get in touch with each other and make connections that way. So
Yeah, that's a good question I was going to have. I saw you've done a couple like YouTube interviews where you got brought on to like a relatively successful you there was one network with like 800,000 followers that they brought you on and you talked about your career, right? Kind of similar to this format but for a much bigger audience. I
yeah.
mean, I guess how did you find stuff like that, or did they find you? And then B, do you attribute a lot of growth to things like that? Is that a useful venture, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I think what happened with that one, I think, if I'm guessing right as to the one you're talking about, the what happened was I was just posting tons of videos, and somebody said it's a shame that nobody has heard of this guy yet or something, and then George Collier, who is a big YouTube guy, he um, he does these weird gimmicky videos where he basically posts like repost somebody like crazy solo somebody does, and then post the transcription going along with it. And then he commented on the video after responding to the other guy. He said, it is a shame indeed. It's too bad nobody's done a transcription of your work yet, Colin. It would be awfully nice of somebody to do that. And I was like, wait a second, is George Collier going to feature one of my videos? And then, yeah, sure enough, he sent me an email like 5 minutes later, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would be honored. So, yeah, sometimes you just are in the right place at the right time, or sometimes the fans that you gain from posting one thing will like kind of push you to something else. Like a fan of mine had actually recommended my video in that guy's Discord channel, and so that's kind of how that happened. So it's good to kind of always. That's why it's always good to stay in touch with your fans or whoever's commenting on your videos. Respond to every comment. I don't have the time to respond to every comment tomorrow anymore, because sometimes there's like 500 or 1,000 comments to read on some of my videos. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
I can't do all this, but I try to respond to all the ones that are asking a question or something, or are saying something interesting. And I try to respond to most of the people that send me Instagram DMs. I do check, periodically on that. So it's definitely very important to try to spread your net far and wide.
Yeah. Well, I think the takeaway, at least for me here too, is that that kind of opportunity didn't come from you reaching out to them. They kind of discovered you through the network. They discovered you through fans that were like, wow, this guy's so good. Like basically you created this ecosystem where people are just so hyped on you. They're like, this guy's incredible. Like, how do people not know him? To the point because of your, I would say, quality, right? The quality of the performance is like next level. It's not one of those things that somebody can pick up a bass guitar and just start doing. Like,
Yeah.
you've obviously been playing for years, you've honed your craft, and it's like very obvious this is spectacular. And maybe it's because I'm not too into the acoustic like guitar world, but I don't see a lot of this kind of stuff personally. Like my feed is not people playing guitar and bass. And so when I come across a video like this, it really stands out as an outlier. Do you think there's how much, I mean, how saturated, if you will, is this scene that you're in? Like, do you feel like you have to compete with a lot of other musicians that are doing similar things? I know some of the people watching right now are, music producers. They make beats. Maybe they do a little bit of hip hop. Maybe they do some EDM. Those spaces are pretty popular. A lot of people make that kind of music or try to make that kind of music. Do you feel that competition? Is it maybe less competitive in your lane, or how do you grapple with that sort of competition?
That's a really great question. So it's music, so it's very competitive no matter what. But at the same time, this particular niche, like solo bass, is less competitive because, like, as far as solo bassists on YouTube, there's not a ton who play it at the highest possible caliber. Like I know of a few others, Charles Bertu probably being the main one of like the kind of top of the line solo bass player. Um, but there's a few others. There's not a. It doesn't feel oversaturated to me, in that sense. There's Xander Zahn. There's what was that guy's name? Who's that crazy tapping guy? Josh Cohen. There's a few, but there's not. It's not. Doesn't feel super oversaturated. I feel like if I were to play guitar, it would feel a lot more competitive because I see so many crazy shredding guitar players, but also a lot of like, solo acoustic guitar players. I feel like that the guitar world is just like, you know, hugely populated with insane players because so many people love to play the guitar. Whereas for bass, it's competitive, but not as competitive for sure. And I think the specific style of bass that I'm doing is also like solo bass. So like you're kind of playing all the parts at the same time and stuff. That's a little less oversaturated than somebody playing finger style bass, for example, and doing some funky grooves, or
Right.
for example, the guys doing like some even jazz soloing, like it's less oversaturated than those styles, I would say, for sure.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen any of Colin's videos, yeah, he plays like the top lines, like the melodies of a song and the bass line at the same time on the same guitar. It's crazy. Like your fingers are moving in ways that I just can't keep up with it. So that's incredible. And that's true. I feel like if you were, let's just say, to play more traditional bass, like if you were to switch and start playing like covers of just cool bass songs that were very basic, you would then have to compete with a lot of other people that were probably doing that same thing. But because
Exactly.
you've kind of carved this really special niche for yourself, and doing things that most bass players either can't do because they're just not skilled enough, but don't even think to do, you've kind of created this niche, right, for yourself that you've been successful in.
Absolutely, absolutely, for sure.
And I think part of that too is kind of maybe this conversation of quality versus uh, not quantity necessarily, but one thing I've noticed from your videos is a lot of them are filmed very casually in the sense of like it looks like it's on your phone, maybe the you have like captions on the screen and some effects here and there, but we're not talking like full production. Like you don't have a camera crew and things like that. I know some folks that I've heard in the past kind of grapple with that, like, do I need to invest in the quality? Should I put all this time and resource into making a good quality video, or do I focus on maybe just the skill within the video, like showing off the skill? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the skill is what you found to be the most successful, right?
Absolutely. So that's a good question too. So you definitely want to invest some money and time into making it look good and polished, but it doesn't need to be. You do not need to invest $5,000 into a home studio and making it, or like $20,000, or having a whole camera crew. That's more of a YouTube thing, I guess. That there's a lot, like YouTube is so oversaturated that there's so many channels with big crews now. It's almost like YouTube is like a mini, like it's like almost like TV now. It's turned
Yeah.
into, because there's so many creators on there with big crews behind it and everything. So it's getting kind of crazy. Like Mr. Beast, obviously, that's a whole nother level. But if you're
Yeah.
doing shorts, it's a different thing. It's about being engaging, right? And you can be engaging just by being yourself. You don't necessarily need to have that level of production quality on it. I will say that I do have like some cheap softbox lights and like a GoPro and a couple, like a DSLR, but I don't have, and I also record all the video or the audio into my audio interface with some good plugins and stuff. So it's not just like the audio from my phone. It's the all the audio is very crisp and clear. So you definitely want to make sure the audio is very crisp and clear in all your videos, and you want to make sure, like, the lighting and the camera angle is good, but it doesn't necessarily need to be 15 different camera angles and people with the whole bunch of tripods and big camera crew or anything
Like
like
filming
that.
a movie or something, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of
exactly.
those
So
YouTube videos, I feel like we're on set for like a Paramount Netflix motion picture, like with the amount of
absolutely.
production that goes into it.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially for shorts, it's really about being engaging and stuff. So Production quality can be minimal, but it doesn't need to be the full shebang. Focus on making it engaging, and making it like uh, just capture people. Focus on thinking a lot about like social media aspect. Like if you read Gary Vaynerchuk's book about this, you'll kind of understand what I mean. But like strategic organic content, think about the trends that people are grabbing onto, and the captions that you might want to use. That's more important than yeah, making it a whole ass you know Paramount Pictures production like you said here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I have one more question, and then if we can open it up to anyone else. If you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. But I was just going to ask real quick. So, how do you brainstorm these ideas for videos? Do you like have a list of ideas you want to film? Do you watch other content to get ideas? How do you come up with this stuff?
Yeah, I do a lot of I definitely do lot of watching other content and other people in the musical niches that are similar to mine. Um, I spend a lot of time like watching different like virtuoso guitar players or other bassists. I've been definitely inspired by a lot of Charles Bertou's videos, um, uh, which those who have seen his videos would probably tell. But yeah, definitely a lot of kind of imitation of different ideas, kind of molding other people's ideas to kind of fit what I'm doing as well. So something like, for example, taking a song, like a catchy song that people already know, but breaking it down into like the starting from the simplest possible iteration of that song, going to the most overtop, crazy, complex, version of that song. So this kind of progression videos, those typically do really well, like the 10 levels of Mario theme, or 15 years of playing bass, or 20 years of playing Seven Nation Army. Those are videos that have all done really well for me. So I spend a lot of time trying to finesse ideas like that based on what I've seen do well on the internet. And yeah, so I watch a lot of videos and I just spend a lot of time brainstorming. And a lot of times I'll just like an idea will just pop into my head while I'm like at the gym or something, and I'm just like, oh shit, write that down right now.
You got to catch it, right, right.
Exactly.
One thing I do just personally for my simple little videos, and for anyone watching, if you need ideas, this is one thing that kind of works for me is whenever I see a video on the feed that I like, I just bookmark it and I put it into like a folder that I call like, content ideas, because I see something and I'm like, oh, that's actually interesting. It gets good engagement. I enjoy it. And I could see how I could spin off this in my own way. And so I just quickly bookmark it. And then when I'm like in focus mode to create stuff, I will go in and like go through those videos and be like, okay, how do I actually recreate this? That way, it's kind of like a two-step process. I capture the idea and then I review it later when I have the capacity to do it. And it sounds like you do something similar. You're at the gym, you're like, oh, I got to write this down. And it just came to me, right?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely imitation is the way to go. There's that saying like, um, smart people imitate, geniuses copy people. So
Oh,
that's
yeah, yeah.
big element to it for sure.
Intro Austin Kleon, right, right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Colin. I appreciate you being here today. I know we're close to the hour. Anyone that's here, any more questions? Joel, Raheel, Eric, since you guys are actually in the Zoom, do you guys have anything you want to ask? Since I can actually get your audio. People on Instagram, I can't get your audio. Raheel asks, "What do you think of Royal Blood?" Mike Kerr.
Yeah, very good. That's a very good rock duo. I saw them live in Vancouver actually a couple of years. I think before COVID, or maybe it was after. I can't remember. But anyway, fantastic band. They're just a duo, basically the bassist that just bass and drums, bass slash vocals, kind of like the White Stripes type of deal, but a lot heavier than the White Stripes. The bassist just like loads his bass with like tons of effects. He creates a lot of unique tones, so it really fills up the sonic space when he plays. So it's very, 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 very interesting, and he can kind of you know, he can do that with just two guys. You know, just fill up the sonic space just by loading up your bass with effects, which is a really cool way of doing it for sure.
You know, I had one idea too, Colin. Just it came to me because one of my friends, he does he's in a reggae band, but he's gotten viral success because he does like reggae versions of popular songs that are not typically reggae. And he does like pop songs, metal songs, rap songs, all kinds of stuff. I think it'd be cool if you were looking for more ideas to do videos of like
Yeah.
maybe popular songs that don't typically fall in the genre to be played by you on bass, you know, like you could do like a Lady Gaga Bad Romance meets bass or something, you know, and just like go super technical with it. I think that would be cool. I would watch that. So you have one guaranteed view of that so
Okay.
far.
Yeah, well, that's enough. You know, one guarantee. That's where it starts, right? That
And
was
you know what? I'll even throw in a share and a like and a comment.
perfect. I got
Full
one.
package.
Excellent. Yes, yes. Okay, that's a perfect start to a video for sure. Yeah, yeah, no, that's it. Actually, very interesting that you mentioned that because I was just thinking of that about that like a couple weeks ago. Like this idea of like taking a song that's completely out of your genre and then just doing something like totally whack with it and kind of making it your own. That's a very good strategy, I think, for viral success. Taking something that's like kind of completely unexpected. Like I was thinking, you know, I don't know, like Barbie Girl or something totally
Yeah.
silly or weird or random. Like you would not normally think of this as you know as a musical choice, but for
I mean,
for
that's the shock factor, right? That's that point
exactly.
five seconds you have to catch their attention. They tune in, they're like, wait a minute, what? This is
Well,
crazy, you know?
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So very cool idea. Yeah, for sure. I will
There's
definitely doing some of that.
Yeah, there's one guy on TikTok I follow. I forgot his name. He's like a blonde dude with glasses, but he like does if the Killers like the Killers Mr. Brightside in the style of Metallica or something like that. And he makes these crazy weird and they sound really good. Like they're really well produced. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Like it actually sounds good. But it's just these combinations you never think of and
yeah,
he's been able to carve a niche for himself. So
for
that's one
sure.
of my takeaways is kind of finding that, you know, special niche that you can really tap into that is not
Yeah,
too competitive. That's one thing. A lot of people watching are like producers and things like that. And it's a competitive space, right? So how do you kind of take that to the next level? How do you stand out in a way so that you're not even competing in the same pool of people, right? You're taking it to a new level in a way that people don't even think to go. You know, what does that look like? I don't know. I don't have the answer. If I did, maybe I would have, you know, millions of views on my TikTok, but
yeah, exactly. No, that's totally the way it goes. Like finding your niche and finding ways to stand out within that niche. That's a big thing. One of my friends does this thing that's he's gone super viral as well. He lives, you know, pretty close to me, but he does what does he do? He does playing rap for old people and then disguising it as jazz. So he'll play like take a Eminem song or like a freaking Tupac song or Big Papa or whatever, and you know, and start singing the lyrics, right? But he's doing like superimposing jazz chords on it and turning it into like a jazz standard
that's
and playing
awesome.
it playing it for like old people at like restaurants or something and filming their reactions. And they're just like going like, "What is this? This is kind of cool." So that's a thing for sure.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. That's see, and like that's something you want to watch. Like even just hearing about it, I'm like, I want to watch that. That sounds really funny. Like at the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
least, interesting. It's entertainment, you know?
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, very entertaining. It's all about entertaining people, for sure.
Yeah. With the underlying skill that you obviously have, right? Like no matter how funny your videos may be, like there's no doubt about the fact that you are very good at what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, for sure. Using your skill or whatever is your strength and kind of making that entertaining, that's kind of a big piece of kind of building up your kind of network on social media, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Colin, and everyone else. We're at the hour here. Are there any last minute questions? Again, anyone in Zoom here? Eric, Raheel, Joel, anything else you guys want to ask, or anyone on the chat?
No questions for me, man. Just but thank you for your time, man, and the
No
insights.
Yeah,
problem.
I keep hearing that squeaking in the background. You're producing bangers over there.
Oh yeah, it's this damn bird right here.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys. Appreciate you all being here. And again, Colin, you mentioned you have an album out now. What's it called again?
Call and response.
Call and response. I love it. I love it. Is it like COLIN response or call and response?
Exactly. Exactly. It's just a basically elaborate pun based on my name because the first song has a lot of call and response sections. So
Perfect. I love it. It's
yeah,
beautiful. So go check
perfect.
it out, guys. Colin, thank you for being here, and everyone that's tuning in. Thank you. I put a link in the Zoom chat, but if you go to meetup.com, we have other events that are scheduled. We have a tour manager AMA coming up next month for anyone that wants to ask questions about touring, that sort of thing. And yeah, thank you all for being here, and have a great night.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.